Dr. Ryan here, and I'm joined by Dr. Grant, and we want to go through an overview of our optimal back squat setup today, and then we'll give an idea of common faults that we see that may lead to potential injury in the gym. So first, let's talk about our optimal setup under the bar. So Dr. Grant's going to go ahead under our barbell, and right off the bat, I want to cue that he's engaging the lats. So in order to do this, his elbows, we're not going to have flying elbows, we're going to have elbows pulled in line with torso, and then he's going to pull that bar straight down with engaging those lats to make sure that's protecting low back. Before he even unwraps, we'll take a deep breath and get braced when we unwrap, especially with heavier weight, and then he'll take a two-step drop. What I'm focusing, again, is lat engagement and then engaging the glutes, keeping that rib cage drawn down, taking a deep belly breath into that position. He's going to slowly pull himself into that bottom position using more hamstring in this case. Once we get to about a 90-degree joint angle, hip and knee, we're going to drive straight up to the sky from there, power it out of the hole with the quadriceps. So go ahead and wrap there, Dr. Grant. So we'll show you guys some common faults that we see. A lot of times, things that lead to injury are in our setup. There's some common problems we see with the initial setup. So again, going under that bar, we'll show you from side view as he unracks. We might have flying elbows, so we don't have lat engagement here. The other thing we'll see is when we go to unwrap, and before that initial descent, is that people will overarch their low back. So now he's dumping the hips forward, and as he descends in that position, go ahead and descend, you'll see he's not able to get as much depth. That bar path will drift out over the toes more, forcing you to use more quadriceps. So with that fault, a lot of times we'll see people with low back irritation, low back pain there, and oftentimes knee pain as well from having that quad dominance. One of the other things that we'll commonly see, again, with a back positioning, we call it a butt wink. He'll go down, and we get too much depth, and then he rounds out through that low back. That tells us that he's not maintaining tension through his core, and oftentimes, again, that can lead to some low back issues, potentially some hip issues as well, and not a very powerful position to get out of the hole. So pay attention to your setup. We advise that you guys set up a camera, if you can, with a side view, and then that way you can get an understanding of optimal positioning with your squat. As you descend and elevate out of the squat, you want to make sure that bar path stays over the midfoot. That's a good indication that you're keeping good low back positioning.
Yeah, and some other things as well as you're setting up. You know, you got to make sure you're centered with the bar, making sure it's not leaning one way or the other. Because often, for many people, it will be leaning one direction or the other. Often, what we also see is a little shift to one leg or the other, and that's demonstrating likely a unilateral or single-sided imbalance, weakness, asymmetry with being able to control the load in the descent and then being able to explode back up into the concentric phase to the top. And so making sure that we have the prerequisites as well when we're talking about doing these complex multi-joint movements. We want to make sure positioning, mechanics, all of those different things, but having adequate strength in the glute med, the lateral hips, in the glute max, being able to control a single leg position to just this descent right here. You can stick your leg out. We want to make sure side to side we're not having those compensations, because that's where we're going to find a lot of the nuances with having pain in the hips or having asymmetrical loading patterns, which will lead to injuries. So with that, you know, if you're putting the weight on, make sure you're not progressing too fast without making sure mechanics are really dialed in, making sure you're avoiding any suboptimal mechanics with the lift, and with that, that's the back barbell back squat, and that's what we got.